We would get slaughtered as a party if Donald Trump's our nominee, and quite frankly, we would deserve it.
Senator Lindsey Graham there with a sober warning about 2024. Oh, wait, hold on. That was actually Lindsey Graham in 2016 warning his party about what would happen if they nominated Donald Trump that year. It's easy to forget that Lindsey ever felt that way about his good buddy, the Donald. Graham has been so devoted to Trump in recent years that when he said, "Count me out," the night of the insurrection, many people were amazed. But of course, just a short while later, Graham was back where he'd been for the whole Trump era, fawning over the guy who lost his party control of the White House and both chambers of Congress.
It's impossible for this party to move forward without President Trump being its leader. I actually like President Trump. He's been very nice to me. He's allowed me to be in his world.
You know what I liked about Trump? Everybody was afraid of him. Including me.
I hope he runs again. And let me tell you why. And I know I'm going on too long. If you think Trump is bad for the party, I disagree with you. I think President Trump is good for the party.
That last clip was from Tuesday, when Graham was one of the warm-up acts ahead of Trump's first D.C. speech since the one he gave on January the 6th, 2021. Now, maybe it's unfair to pick on just Senator Lindsey Graham. What about the guy who could well be the next Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy? Could he have imagined as a young California congressman in 2007 that his path to power would include a stint sorting starbursts for the president, a president called Trump? But on a more serious note, McCarthy is the guy who told colleagues after January the 6th that he would urge Trump to step down for his role urging the mob towards the Capitol. Yet a few weeks later, McCarthy was all grins with the Donald at Mar-a-Lago. Look at them, smiling away. There are plenty of Trump boosters haunting the halls of our Capitol. But Kevin McCarthy and Lindsey Graham did not come to Washington with the MAGA movement. They had to contort themselves and honestly debase themselves to find their footing in the Trump era. And what would Donald Trump be without the devotion of people like Kevin and Lindsey? The Atlantic's Mark Leibovich recently called these two the doormat duo for their willingness to get stepped on. They're among the main characters in his new book, Thank You for Your Servitude, Donald Trump's Washington and the Price of Submission. Leibovich covered Trump's rise as correspondent for the New York Times, and this is his first book about the Trump era. But it's not really about Trump at all. Quote, far more compelling to me were the slavishly devoted Republicans whom Trump drew to his side, who got the free desserts at BLT, the steakhouse in Trump's Washington hotel. These were the careerists who capitulated to Trumpism to preserve their livelihoods. Trump served as a big mirror to the political world he was surrounding in full. He imposed his own character study, and the results were endlessly depressing. And Mark Leibovich joins me now. He's a staff writer at The Atlantic and an MSNBC political analyst. Mark, thanks so much for coming on the show. When you try to ask people like Lindsey Graham or Kevin McCarthy about their behavior in relation to Trump, this idea of relevance keeps coming up. What does that mean?
Relevance is sort of a clinical way of saying, look, I need to be in the mix. I need to be on the golf course with Donald Trump. As Lindsey Graham would say, I need to be at the dice table. There's a thrill-seeking aspect to this. And frankly, that's power. I mean, there's an addiction quality to staying in power, perpetuating one's power, growing one's power when you are in office. And at root, this is sort of people being scared of not having their parking space, not having their staff, not having their status. Ultimately, though, these are people who know that Donald Trump, I think privately, they'll say that Donald Trump is not fit to be president. They have real concerns about Donald Trump. Sometimes they go publicly about them or with them. And ultimately, when push comes to shove, they're not willing to do anything about it. So they have essentially, capitulated to Donald Trump. They have not had any stomach to any sort of fight for him or fight with him and to sort of stand up for what they truly believe to be right and true for the future of their party and their country. And that was the endlessly depressing story that I confronted, day in and day out when I was doing this book over the last few years.
And of course, Mark, what's so fascinating and depressing when people read your book is that they will see that there are folks on the right willing to say what they really think of Trump, so long as you don't use their names. This is from page 149 of your book. Quote, "You have a situation where the leader of our party models the worst behavior imaginable," another outgoing Republican member of Congress told me. "And if you're a Republican in Washington, the idea is basically to make yourself as much of a as possible in order to get attention and impress the biggest of all, the guy sitting in the White House." I asked the outgoing congressman very nicely, even a tad aggressively, whether I could attach his name to this excellent quote. "No effing way," he said. "Why? Because a lot of these people are my friends, and I might have to lobby them one day too." Mark, it's a deeply depressing state of affairs, which both reveals the cravenness of a lot of Republicans, but also our political system, where you go off to be a lobbyist, you have to keep good ties with whoever's in charge.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's not a new story. I mean, opportunism has been around in Washington and the political world for a long time, and basically people will do what it takes to make it work for them in the current environment of politics. I mean, that's not a new story. The difference during the Trump era is that the stakes were so much higher. I'm not one of these people who thinks it's alarmist to say that our democracy is at stake. People toss out notions like civil war, and I don't necessarily think it's an overheated sentiment at this point. These are really dangerous times. I mean, I've been here 25 years. I've never really seen it like this before. And frankly, I mean, one of the recurring lessons of this whole book is that it didn't have to be this way. Without the capitulation of the Republican Party, Donald Trump would just be another geriatric golfer in Florida who watches Fox a lot of the time. And it's endlessly depressing, but it's also funny and a fun beach read. How's that?
Yeah, I mean, Trump is nothing without his enablers, as we pointed out on the show, and that's what makes your book so important. You wrote about former Speaker Paul Ryan's reaction to watching the events of January the 6th. Quote, "Now, as he watched the Capitol being ransacked on TV, Ryan found himself sobbing. He's never been much of a crier," he said, but something snapped in him. This is a moving image. But then I remember that Paul Ryan never stood up to Trump in Congress and now sits on the board of Fox. What did he say when you raised those things with him? Did you point out to him the kind of hypocrisy there to say, "I'm crying," but then Fox?
Yeah, no, I didn't. I don't think I used the word hypocrisy, but yeah, I said at one point, Mr. Speaker, are any of these tears of complicity? Did you feel any guilt here? Could you have done more when you were the Speaker of the House and you were the, third in line to be president? I mean, he didn't want to go there. And then I pointed out the Fox board seat that he's been on and really hasn't done much with, at least that I can see. And he didn't want to go there either. So, I mean, I don't doubt that his tears were maybe sincere. I think people get, genuinely conflicted when they are in situations like this that are too big for them. But ultimately, I think it's certainly incumbent upon me to point out the hypocrisies inherent to this. And Paul Ryan was a big disappointment to a lot of people, both on the left and on the right. And he's in private life now, but doing quite well for himself, which is another familiar Washington story.
My memory of Paul Ryan will always be those moments in the hallways when he was asked, "Did you see Trump's tweet?" "I didn't see it. I haven't read his tweets," which is always his way of deflecting any question about Trump's extremism. So to the extent that Republicans have a strategy, Mark, for fending off Trumpism, those Republicans who even want to fend it off, it basically is, from your book, just to wait. You have a quote, "A former Republican congressman told me recently," you say, "that the party's only real plan for dealing with Trump in 2024 involved a darkly divine intervention. We're just waiting for him to die," he said. That was it. That was the plan. He was 100% serious. But then again, Mark, if there's one thing your book has demonstrated, it's the lengths the party has gone in embracing Trumpism. So even if Trump were to be run over by a bus tomorrow, even if he were to disappear from the planet, Trumpism is going to outlast him, is it not?
I think it will. I mean, I think Trumpism is the seed corn of the party right now. I mean, there are a lot of sort of Trump juniors trying to imitate him, trying to sort of be the heir to Donald Trump, trying to get away with what he gets away with. And I think what's interesting about that quote there is, yes, a Republican said it, a Republican in Congress said it, but I think it's emblematic of the sort of passivity that people approach him with, the sort of notion that if we just wait this out, the problem will go away. They're essentially bystanders and not, someone taking an active role in the destiny of their country. And Liz Cheney actually said that to me explicitly. She said, and she was talking about Mitch McConnell, she said, Mitch McConnell just sort of wants to be a bystander here and hope this goes away. And unfortunately, that's not not what leadership is, and that's not how problems get solved. And I think most people would privately say, and maybe publicly say at some point, that this is a problem for them, and Donald Trump is not going away. And at some point, they're going to have to deal with him maybe more directly.